me, I went from being a huge fish in a tiny pond to a tiny fish in an imaginable ocean. Unimaginably large ocean.
I just want to harp in on that point quickly because I remember listening to the NPR podcast, NPR News, and they had this segment. They had the scientists on that talked about college kids who, in their schools where they're from, they were the big fish in the small pond. They were the smartest kid, most academically achieved, et cetera, et cetera. And they would go to these Ivy level league schools, and they would find out these, they become a small fish in the big pond because now you're competing with global students who are also high achievers. And so it's like they found that those kids struggle really hard because now, like you said, they're constantly facing failure and they're not feeling good enough. They're not feeling like they can compete. And, a lot of bad things happen from that. Grades drop, they drop out, they transfer schools, etc. So it's very interesting that you said that. And even
that was me, 100%.
And even being the engineer that you are now, how do you even? And I'm gonna get back. We're gonna get back to the story, but I want to know how do you cope with that even today, being a Black engineer who has some 10-year experience in this field and a developer at that, but you're around other guys who are they just might be better, more exposure, or they even are just as good as you. How do you cope with that feeling of I'm not good enough, my job is constantly on the line? How do you deal with that? Because that's something that we, most of us have experienced or will go through in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of all the soft skills that we always talk to people about, like on Twitter Spaces and stuff, work on this, that, and the other, the one that hardly ever gets mentioned, I think is one of the most important, is actual adult maturity. Because I encounter a lot of people who are older but not mature. See, there's a certain level of self-gratification that exceeds exterior gratification as you mature, truly mature, that allows you, when you're in a tech space and maybe you're not the best developer or cloud engineer or whatever else, to understand I am going to run my race and that is sufficient. And that even goes for the learning journey. A lot of people make tons of mistakes in their learning journey trying to run other people's races or trying to compare themselves to people whose the lifestyle doesn't even fit. I remember I did probably the most popular Twitter thread I ever did was about data structures and algorithms, because I encountered people who were like me, like self-taught or whatever, later in life, career transition, and trying to get into tech, and they're going straight to leak code and then just bombing out miserably. Like they can't answer easies after months. And I'm like, well, where did you learn data structures and algorithms? Like, well, I'm going to learn it on leak code. Like, you can't learn it on leak code. I mean, that's just problem. That's exercises. Where did you learn? And it come to find out, they were following people's advice who had gone to college and taken data structures and algorithms classes. I'm like, you can't take the final if you don't take the class first. You have to you have to learn the body of knowledge first.
I need that on the t-shirt. You can't take the final until you take the class.
Take the class. That's it. Like, you have to learn the body of knowledge first. Then you can go for the test, the search, the whatever else, but you have to learn the material somewhere. But that's part of, I'm going to run my race and that's sufficient. And my race doesn't have to look like your race. And if you did it in 6 months and I do it in 2 years, that is fine. Because I have my own race to run. Right? I'm in competition with others per position, but not per my life. And I can design my life in any way that I want. And so to skip back to the whole big fish, little pond thing, it is perfectly successful. And I have a Christian background, perfectly fine for me to applaud another person's success, knowing what he'll do for others, he'll do for me. And I can be good with that. But that's in maturity. I wasn't there at 17, at 16, 17, at not even close, not even in the area. Plus, I graduated early, so I graduated at 16.